Okay, so our next speaker is Bronwyn Richards from Winland House in Braidwood, a sustainable suburban microfarm. Please welcome Bronwyn.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? So first of all, I wanted to say that I'm actually quite chuffed to be a part of this conference with so many prestigious speakers and, of course, so many large farms, because we certainly aren't a large farm. But I'd also like to acknowledge women in agriculture, because I think they play an incredibly important role. I'll be looking at notes because that's the slide. So, Winland House is our small farm or micro-farming enterprise on a large village block in Braidwood, in the geographic cold climate region of the southern tablelands. It is a small, organic, four-season, slow food farm, selling produce all year to consumers. The farm runs a market garden as well as producing some meat. We raise 2 to 3 batches of meat chickens a year and a batch of turkeys for Christmas. We also raise 3 sheep and 2 or 3 pigs, primarily for home consumption over a 3-year period. We consider that Winland House is a slow food enterprise with a focus on growing food to be consumed locally. We use the term slow food as a descriptor for the approach we take to the food and producing the food. For us, it's about producing local food with no food miles and sharing our food knowledge. The approach is based on a concept of food that is defined by 3 interconnected principles: good, clean and fair. Good is about the quality of the food and healthy food. It's about a fresh and flavoursome food that is culturally relevant. It's a seasonal diet. Clean is about the production. It's a production that does not harm the environment, animal welfare or our health. And fair is about accessible prices, not only for the consumer, but fair conditions for the producer and the farm as well. There's been a lot of talk about the impact that consumers have on food production. And in slow food terminology, consumers are called co-producers because it's believed that we have to have a partnership with the people who are consuming our food. And I think that's a very good way to think about it. It gives consuming is quite a passive term, whereas if you are a co-producer, you're quite active in the role of food production, and your influence has impact. And I think that's quite a positive way to view the language. I wanted to talk about our climate. Braidwood is located within a cool climate region of the southern tablelands, like all of us here. This being the largest cool climate region in New South Wales. The areas within this, known as the Capital Region and the Monero, are the most extreme cool climate areas within Australia, apart from the alpine areas. So to help you understand this a little bit more, Braidwood experiences an average of 110 frost days per year. Our frost season officially begins on the 23rd of March through to the 22nd of November. And I'll note that there was a frost around this region yesterday morning, I heard. Of course, we can have a frost outside of those time frames at any time of the year. In fact, I think January is the only month where statistically there hasn't been a frost. So we experience a long frost season, but we rarely experience snow. Our other frost-prone cool climates of regions of Australia experience between 20 to 50 frost nights per year, with an average minimum temperature of about 0 to 2 degrees. That's some parts of the southern tablelands, the central tablelands, central west, northern tablelands, and some parts of the Darling Downs. In the capital region, our average minimum temperature is 0 to -5 degrees, and our average rainfall is somewhere around 650 to 750 mils if we get it. It's a climate that presents some challenges. In terms of the urban farm, this is much more than just an idea for sustainable living. It is becoming a reality for the many who are turning their front and backyards, their verandas and street verges into produce plots for food and extra cash. Our farm, Willan House, is proof that this search for sustainability in Australia's urban and suburban streets is both achievable and very rewarding. Willan House was started in 2006 by myself and my partner Helen Lynch, who's operating our little thing over there. You got it together? No? Remember to turn over the page because it's on the other side. We started as a part-time business running a CSA box scheme or community supported agriculture for around 5 local families. Our customers agreed to purchase whatever we produce, and this essentially gave us the initial confidence in growing for other people without having to concern ourselves with the retail aspect. In 2010, we reconsidered our farming practice and further explored organic and sustainable approaches for increased small farm all-year cold climate production. Slide 9 we're up to. Go girls! Out of this research, we pioneered the use of agricultural fabrics, cloche frames and covered cropping into the small farm food production sector in our region. At this time, these products and practices were only accessible to large-scale production in the horticultural industry, with little knowledge of covered cropping and fabrics available elsewhere. To be frank, when I first moved to Braidwood in 2002 and purchased a large village block for food production, I was repeatedly told that you could not grow veggies all year here or there and would never get a ripe tomato. This seemed completely ludicrous to me, considering that most of Europe and a significant part of the United States have much colder climates than what we experience anywhere in Australia, and people can grow food all year. They don't just stop eating. Yes, it's not a temperate climate where you can grow most things quite easily. A cold climate just means more planning and greater management. So how much do we produce on our small village farm? Are we there yet? Yes. The total property size is 4,747 square metres. Okay, we're a really micro farm, just under 1¼ acres in the old money. Our market garden is 1,000 square metres, which is 1/4 acre in the old money. Our annual average market garden production is 3 tonnes. Our annual average table poultry production, that's dressed meat, is 250 kilos, and our annual egg production is 270 dozen. How do we achieve this? At Willan House, we draw on a range of philosophies in our garden practice. Primarily, we use organic methods, grown without chemical fertilisers or poison sprays. I agree with Peter Kemp that I have some issues about organic certification, and we have chosen not to do that path. Growing organically infers an interest in maintaining well-structured and fertile soil that will provide plants with nutrients, air and water. Organic in the dictionary comes from having the characteristics of a living organism. Gardening organically means treating the soil as if it were alive. That is something needing food, water, shelter and proper mineral content to ensure its health. You need vigorous, healthy plants so that you have, vigorous, healthy soil so that you have vigorous, healthy plants. It's as simple as that. We practice intensive or continuous polyculture. This broadly refers to a horticultural method in which growers maximise yield from a minimum area of land while seeking to preserve or even improve the quality of the soil. It means that there is a big variety of different plants reaching maturity continuously. It helps suppress weeds, can confuse pests, and as long as you maintain soil fertility, it is by far the heaviest yielding form of agriculture. This method of horticulture is not new. Organic systems of intensive horticulture were practiced 4,000 years ago in China, 2,000 years ago in Greece, and at least 1,000 years ago in Latin America. In more modern times, these horticultural practices were redeveloped in Europe during the 1700s through to the early 1900s. Most notably, the French intensive techniques were developed by market gardeners outside Paris. Crops were grown in 8 inches of horse manure, fertiliser that was readily available. The crops were grown so close to each other that when the plants were mature, they provided a mini climate and a living mulch that reduced weed growth and helped hold moisture in the soil. During the winter, glass jars were placed over seedlings to give them an early start. The gardens grew up to 9 crops each year. Intensive polyculture lost favour until its rediscovery in the latter part of the 20th century by a few key prominent horticulturists. In 1966, Alan Chadwick, English garden master, brought his synthesis of biodynamic French intensive method to America to convert a barren slope of the University of California, Santa Cruz, into a flourishing garden. In 1972, excited by the success of the university project, Ecology Action approved a biointensive research and education project with John Jevons, the project director. The first book about that was released, called How to Grow More Vegetables, was published in 1974, with the 9th edition being republished in 2017. John Jevons and Ecology Action adopted the term biointensive polyculture, or grow biointensive, so as to distinguish their particular concepts around this theme. The modern proponents of intensive polyculture, Elliot Coleman, Belinda Handel, and John Martin Fortier, the market gardener. The key concepts, we got there. Building soil and using compost, of course. Compost is an excellent source of organic matter and nutrients. In its finished form, it contains the major plant nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, as well as all the minor nutrients that plants need. Furthermore, it releases these nutrients slowly, thus minimising runoff and leaching. Compost will improve almost every measure of soil quality and health. And on our small farm, we extensively use compost, and I was just sitting there when the olive grower was talking about the compost in his property. I think in terms of our very minute property, we probably produce about 6 cubic metres of compost a year for our garden. Spacing is another important aspect. Plants are grown more closely together than in traditional row gardens. Plantings of vegetables, herbs or fruit are often staggered so that a plant in one row is between 2 plants in the other row. This creates a continuous leaf cover that shades out weeds and reduces the amount of area that needs to be mulched. Gotta go faster. So let's look at what we're actually doing. So you can see that we are using these types of methods here. We've actually there are a few factors that have to be considered when you're doing this type of growing, and all of these factors are very similar to everything we've been talking about this morning. We need to think about the plant's growth period. We need to think about its pattern, tall, short, below or above ground. We need to think about its season, long season, slow to mature, short season, quick to mature. We have to look at the positive and negative effects on other plants, such as the allelopathic effects of sunflowers and Jerusalem artichokes on nearby plants. And we need to think about the preferred season and light, nutrient and moisture requirements to make all of this system work. What we've done here, you can see this is a bed that's just planted. It was planted 4 weeks ago. We use a lot of seedlings. We have, on the outer row here, we have broccoli. It's 50 centimetres apart. In between that, we have a double planting of pak choi. That means we've got 2 pak choi planted together in the same space. The inside row here is Asian turnips planted as seed. We have spring onions in the middle here planted as 20 centimetres apart. On this side, we have another row of seed, which is radishes. They're already coming through quite well. On the outer row, we have cabbages, once again 50 centimetres apart. And into that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crops out of the one bed that is producing over a period of time. So it's also a succession planting style of planting. So it progresses over time. The last to be harvested will be the brassicas and the spring onions in the middle. The brassicas will cover the entire bed by the time they're ready to be planted. Can you just show us the next slide? This is a similar planting, which you can see, brassicas, lettuces, radishes, spring onions, brassicas. This bed's wider, so it's got more in it. That's a planting at 8 weeks. So you can see that we're already, we can start harvesting a lot of things that are in this bed already. And it also looks at a farm being an interrelated system. So I very quickly just wanted to talk about looking at the bigger picture. In 2012, there was the United Nations Rio 20 Conference on Sustainable Development, and that called for enhancing food security, nutrition and more sustainable agriculture. And it initiated the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. The conference acknowledged that the Green Revolution had increased total global agricultural production by as much as threefold in 50 years, but that while it was doing that, the conference stated categorically that the current trajectory of growth in agricultural production and productivity is unsustainable, with food production on land and in aquatic systems dominating much of the global terrestrial surface and having a major negative impacts on the Earth's ecosystems. Worldwide, we're having the same impact. Access to food and adequate nutrition is still a problem. We might be producing a lot of food. In fact, we're currently producing enough food to feed 12 billion people, while we have a global population of 7 billion, although we still have 1 billion who are suffering from hunger, 1.5 billion adults who are overweight, and it's estimated that 40% of the total daily global production of food is wasted. We could be doing a lot better, and all of this is putting incredible pressure on our resources. So, one of the other important things that came out of some 2012 and 2014 UN conferences was that the UN Food and Agricultural Organisation radically changed its thinking, embracing sustainable food and agriculture, recognising that small farms are more productive and resource conserving. And I quote, "Small-scale farmers produce 70% of the world's food, while they have just 20% of the land." To explain that further, a large farm may produce more corn per hectare than a small farm in which the corn is grown as part of a polyculture that also includes beans, squash, potatoes and fodder. But productivity in terms of harvestable products per unit area of polyculture developed by smallholders is higher than under a single crop with the same level of management. Yield advantages can range from 20% to 60% because polycultures reduce losses due to weeds, because they occupy more space, they reduce insect and disease damage, etc., etc., etc. So what all of that said, I can give you a couple of figures. Research done in the United States. 2 hectare farms in the United States, the smallest farms, produced $15,000 per hectare and netted about $2,900 per hectare. The largest farms, averaging $15,500, yielded $249 per hectare and netted about $52 per hectare. You can see that small farmers have a greater ability to produce food at a lower cost, and hence, which is where we come back to it, and although I've run out of time and can't say all the other wonderful things I was going to say, I did want to finish with this. And to finish with the words of wisdom from a song poet. The last slide, please, Miss Helen. Get there. From little things, big things grow.
I think a big farm in India, by the way, is about 5 acres. But Donna asks, do you need to bring in inputs to make a compost that you use, or is it a closed system?
We're too small to be an entirely closed system. So we do bring in inputs. We have some horsing stables close by us. It costs us nothing to get stable manure. We have a sawmill close by us. It costs us nothing to get sawdust. So yes, we do bring some inputs in, but we produce an awful lot of waste from our garden. It goes through the chooks and it goes through our compost. So we try and minimise that as much as possible.
Is it financially rewarding?
It's financially viable. And we are very, very small. To have a financially rewarding market garden, you need a minimum of two acres. That way you'll be producing a comfortable income for you and your family. So what we are doing is on a very small scale. But we, like other people, have looked at other ways of developing what we are doing. So we run an online and on-farm learning program because we believe it's important that people know that they can produce food in a small space. Like some of the other speakers, we have open gardens and encourage tourism because people come and see what they can do on a very small space.
Okay, thank you, Bronwyn. Look, there's a lot of unanswered questions there.